on the windswept moors of Yorkshire. Love can be as wild and unforgiving as the land itself. In Emily Bronte's only novel, passions run deep, grudges last a lifetime, and the ghosts of the past refuse to rest. This is not a love story in the way we're used to. It's a storm, a haunting, and a battle of hearts and wills. Today, we dive deep into the dark beauty of Wuthering Heights and uncover why, more than a century and a half later, it still stirs the soul and unsettles the mind. Emily Brontë remains one of the most enigmatic figures in English literature. Born in 1818 in the Yorkshire village of Haworth, she lived a life marked by seclusion, hardship, and fierce imagination. Alongside her sisters, Charlotte and Anne, she published poetry and prose that challenged the conventions of Victorian England. Emily, the most reclusive of the three, produced only one novel, Wuthering Heights, first published in 1847 under the pseudonym Alice Bell. Victorian society, at the time, was tightly bound by class distinctions, rigid moral codes, and prescribed roles for women. Literary realism was emerging, but the Brontes infused it with heightened emotional intensity and a Gothic atmosphere that pushed far beyond the polite boundaries of their era. Emily's world was shaped by the stark landscapes of the Yorkshire moors, the early loss of her mother, the deaths of several siblings, and the family's financial instability. The year Wuthering Heights appeared, Charlotte's Jane Eyre was also published. Charlotte's work quickly won acclaim, but Emily's novel was met with mixed, even hostile, reviews. Critics were unsettled by its raw portrayal of human passion, cruelty, and revenge. They found the characters abrasive, the emotions violent, and the supernatural undertones unnerving. Yet, from this initial shock, Wuthering Heights gained a place in the literary canon, recognized now as a groundbreaking exploration of destructive love, social alienation, and the human capacity for both tenderness and vengeance. In the broader literary context, the novel sits at a crossroads between Romanticism and Victorian realism. It borrows from the Romantic tradition in its wild, natural imagery and emotional extremes, but also foreshadows modernist complexity in its multi-layered narration and moral ambiguity. Emily's refusal to soften her vision or moralize her characters has turned this single work into a lasting, almost mythic, contribution to world literature. Wuthering Heights begins on the remote, windswept moors of Yorkshire, where isolation shapes both the land and the people who inhabit it. The story is framed by the perspective of Mr. Lockwood, a newcomer renting a nearby estate called Thrushcross Grange. When he visits his landlord, the brooding and mysterious Heathcliff, at the nearby manor of Wuthering Heights, he encounters an atmosphere heavy with tension and unresolved history. Through the housekeeper, Nellie Dean's recollections, the past begins to unfold. Years earlier, Wuthering Heights was home to the Earnshaw family, whose patriarch, one day, returned from a trip with an orphan boy, Heathcliff, raised alongside Mr. Earnshaw's children, Catherine and Hindley. Heathcliff grew up loved by some and despised by others. his intense bond with Catherine would become the central axis of the story. A connection so deep it blurred the line between love and obsession, yet fragile in the face of pride, class difference, and societal expectation. The arrival of the well-bred Linton family at Thrushcross Grange further complicates matters, intertwining the fates of the two households. Friendships, romances, and grudges form and fracture, often in ways that echo across generations. Both estates, Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange, become symbols of the contrasting worlds their residents inhabit. One, wild, harsh, and passionate. The other, refined, orderly, and restrained. As the years pass, the story traces the impact of choices made in youth, the poisonous growth of revenge, and the haunting persistence of longing. New characters inherit the unresolved tensions of their elders, caught between repeating old patterns and finding new paths. Without revealing its conclusion, the novel is less about neatly tied endings than about living with the storms, both literal and emotional, that shape identity. It invites the reader into a landscape where nature and human hearts are equally untamed, and where love, once kindled, refuses to fade quietly. Heathcliff stands at the novel's center like a dark pillar, unyielding and impossible to ignore. As an orphan, brought into the Earnshaw family, his early life is shaped by both kindness and cruelty, fueling a complex inner world. His love for Catherine is absolute, yet tinged with a possessiveness that warps into vengeance when denied. Heathcliff embodies the fusion of victim and villain. His actions, often shocking, but rooted in deep, emotional wounds. Catherine Earnshaw is every bit as untamed as the Moors themselves. Spirited, proud, and torn between desire and social ambition. Her love for Heathcliff is fierce, but obstructed by her longing for a life of refinement and stability. This divided loyalty drives some of the novel's most painful turning points, as she chooses one path while her heart demands another. The supporting cast: Hindley Earnshaw, Edgar Linton, Isabella Linton, and the next generation amplify the central themes. Hindley's cruelty toward Heathcliff sets the stage for cycles of revenge. Edgar's gentleness offers a foil to Heathcliff's intensity. Isabella's infatuation speaks to the dangers of romanticizing the unknown. Among the themes, love and revenge stand in constant tension. Emily Brontë refuses to present love as purely redemptive. In Wuthering Heights, love can both heal and destroy. Revenge, once rooted, infects generations, showing how bitterness can outlive its original cause. Class and social hierarchy weigh heavily on the characters' choices. Catherine's refusal to marry Heathcliff is not solely personal, but deeply tied to the rigid, Victorian view of status and inheritance. This divide between wealth and passion underscores the novel's exploration of what people are willing to sacrifice or betray to secure a place in society. Nature plays a symbolic role, with the Moors representing both freedom and danger. Their beauty, wild and ungovernable, mirrors the novel's most intense emotions. Wuthering Heights itself stands for raw, untamed life, while Thrushcross Grange embodies cultivated civility. These locations are more than settings. They are emotional landscapes, in stone and earth. Supernatural elements, ghostly visions, haunting presences, blur the line between reality and the psychological grip of memory and grief. Whether literal or figurative, these moments remind us that in Bronte's world, the past is never truly gone. The genius of Wuthering Heights lies in Emily Bronte's refusal to offer moral clarity. Characters are neither wholly good nor evil, but exist in shades of gray, driven by forces at once personal, societal, and elemental. This moral ambiguity keeps the novel alive, inviting fresh debate each time it's read. The echoes of Wuthering Heights still resonate, because its central conflicts feel strikingly modern. At its heart, the novel examines the deep human need for belonging and the destructive power of being denied it. Heathcliff's transformation from an unloved outsider into a figure of dominance and cruelty mirrors the ways unresolved trauma can be passed down like an heirloom, not only within families, but within entire communities. Its portrayal of love as both salvation and ruin challenges the sanitized romantic ideals that still saturate popular culture. In a world where media often flattens passion into an easy, happily ever after, Brontë offers a reminder that the strongest emotions can be jagged and consuming, capable of shaping or shattering lives. The book's refusal to make its relationships comfortable or easily categorized is part of why it continues to capture attention. The novel's emphasis on class divisions and social gatekeeping also connects to today's conversations about privilege, inequality, and the invisible structures that dictate who belongs where. Catherine's choice to marry for status over love is not simply a Victorian quirk. It reflects an enduring human calculation about security, image, and opportunity. A calculation that modern readers may recognize in different forms, from career choices to social alliances. Even the setting feels timeless in its symbolism. The Moor's freedom and danger parallel the mental landscapes of isolation, depression, and self-exile that many face in the modern era. In a sense, the physical environment becomes an early form of psychological realism. External storms mirroring internal ones. In literature, Wuthering Heights helped broaden the possibilities for storytelling by marrying Gothic intensity with complex psychological portraits. Contemporary works that explore antiheroes, moral ambiguity, and the lingering grip of the past often walk through a door Emily Brontë helped open. Whether in novels, films, or streaming series, we still see echoes of Heathcliff and Catherine in characters who love too recklessly and fight too bitterly to let go. In the end, Wuthering Heights is less a love story than a haunting examination of the forces that bind and break people. Emily Brontë crafts a portrait of love that refuses to be softened for comfort's sake, one that acknowledges passion's capacity for both joy and devastation. The novel's layered narrative structure, shifting perspectives, and blending of realism with Gothic supernaturalism ensure it remains a living, breathing text rather than a relic. Its power lies in its refusal to provide moral certainty or emotional resolution. The legacies of love, revenge, and social constraint remain unresolved, much like the Moors themselves. Vast, dangerous, and open to interpretation. Each generation of readers finds something slightly different In the shifting light of Bronte's prose. Whether it's the ache of lost love, the thrill of defiance, or the shadow of vengeance unfulfilled. For a modern audience, the takeaway is clear. Some emotions cannot be neatly extinguished. And the past has a way of threading itself through the present. Wuthering Heights invites us to question whether the storms we weather are entirely of our own making, or whether they are part of a larger, inherited landscape. Either way, it reminds us that in life, as on the moors, calm days exist. But it is the storms we remember